Hi, I'm Hannah, and welcome to Ghost International. Let's welcome Chris Shields telling her ghost story today.
Hi.
Hi, Chris. Okay, so what happened in this ghost story? Where did it take place?
In southern Michigan.
Oh, wow. You're far away from home now, huh?
Yeah.
Okay, so describe what happened.
Well, I lived in this old house growing up as a girl that was about 100 years old. And of course it had its own house noises. But there was something there other than house noises. My bedroom in particular, which I shared with my two sisters, the closet doors would open and shut all by themselves. And you'd feel cold breezes come through the room and go out the front windows. And we'd tell my mom and my dad, and they'd say, oh, it's just an old house. It was more than that. If we had no adult in the house and it was just the kids at home, we'd hear the cupboards rattle in the kitchen downstairs, and we'd go down there and there'd be nobody there. And we'd go down to our third lower level of it was a big older house, and the lower level was like a basement family room, and two of the rooms were so ice cold that we just didn't ever want to go in there. We went down there one day, my mom and dad were gone, and we felt something touch us. There was nobody else there but me and my sisters. Scared the bejesus out of us. So we ran up the stairs and we all sat together in one room till my mom and dad got home, and we tried to tell them there was something there. And they said, no, there's not. Okay, so fast forward another couple of years, and I had another brother in the family who was a couple of years old. He's a lot younger than me. And he told my mom, there's kids in my bedroom. And my mom would say, there can't be any kids there. You're the only kid here. And she'd go upstairs. He'd be up there talking to the air like there were other kids in the room with him. And they say that kids can see ghosts just because they're young souls and they've just been born into the world. So he'd sit there and have little tea parties with himself, talking to people at the table like there was somebody in the room with him. It was really weird. So now that we're all grown and gone from the house, my parents sold the house to a friend of ours. And I went to high school with him. And so every time I go home to Michigan, I stop by the old house just to look, and I ask him, does anything weird happen in the house? And he says, I know there's somebody here with me. He's a single bachelor, lives alone, so there's nobody there but him and his dog. And he says he'll be upstairs and downstairs in the kitchen. He'll hear the cupboards rattling. He'll hear people walking up and down the stairs. And out of the corner of his eye, he'll think he'll see something whisk by him going down the stairs. It's the same stuff that happened to us when we were kids. So it's not just us.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm just convinced that there's something in that house, either died there and doesn't know they're dead, or it was built over an old Indian ground, because you know Michigan is all Indian territory. So I'm not sure, but that house was really weird. I also have another story. My sister lives in a haunted house.
Really?
Oh.
And she calls her ghost the trickster, because it's just her and her husband, and her kids are grown and married, and she'll be washing dishes and she'll take her rings off and put them on the counter, go to the bedrooms and, you know, clean up the house and whatnot, go back to the kitchen, things are moved, the ring is missing, it'll be up in the back cupboard behind packages of food, hidden.
Wow.
So she calls her ghost the trickster. Yeah, when I go over there to visit, you can look through her family room, sitting in the living room, and you'll see stuff whiz by, like come in through the front door and go out the back door, like phew. It's just really spooky.
Wow.
I don't stay at her house anymore because it's too freaky for me. I can't sleep like that. So I don't know why. My friends at church tell me that the ghosts must be just attached to me, because sometimes they say spirits are attached to, like they see white energy or, you know, good spirits or whatever.
Oh, definitely.
And they're
That's what
drawn
happens
to that.
me. Yeah.
So when people tell me they don't believe in ghosts, I just bite my lip and let them think what they want to think, because I've lived it my whole life. My house across the street, we've never had any problems. I don't think anyone's ever died there. I asked the neighbors and they said no, but the house is pretty calm. And actually, just the other day, we got home from vacation, and I was sitting in bed reading, and the dog looked up across the room and stared like she was looking at somebody, but it was just me and the dog home. So I'm not sure if she just was hearing a noise, or I'm not sure, but
Yeah.
I didn't feel like it was menacing. So yeah, it happens.
And yeah, what about that one fire one where that girl's next door or something?
Oh,
Like that lady dies next door?
yes. When I was a young
It's
girl,
freaky.
I was probably about 15 or 16 in high school, and we lived in this old house that had about
You think
5
that was
acres
kinda-
of property around it. It was in the country. And so a little ways down, like what would be equivalent to 4 houses away here, was our neighbor. And one night we heard somebody crying, "Help me! Help me!" And we jumped out of bed. Well, her house was on fire, and she was an elderly woman, about 80 years old. She lived there alone. And my dad ran down the stairs, across the yard, and ran into the burning house on fire and rescued her. And the firemen came, and the house was damaged and whatnot, and she had to go to the hospital. Well, when she came home, she ended up dying a short time later in that house. And for many years after that, you would hear, always around Halloween, that's when the house fire was, you'd hear something yell, "Help me, help me." Now, I was the oldest, so I had 7 brothers and sisters younger than me, still living in the house, and they told me that went on for years. So I'm not sure again, because my parents sold the
Yeah.
house, and now my friend lives there. But just stuff like that has happened to me my whole life.
Yeah.
So I'm a believer. I don't have to see to believe, because when you have that stuff happen to you all the
Yeah.
time, you just know that anything's possible.
Exactly. And I actually put another video on YouTube, that doll one that I was telling you about. And I put it on and I showed my dad and he's like, "That's not true." And I showed him, I'm like, "I have the proof right here," and he didn't believe me, so I know what that feels like. Especially having visual proof, some people still don't believe.
Well, I'm a scientific person myself, being in healthcare, but when you have, a lot of people need to have proof, but when you have that stuff happen to you all the time, you tend to be a believer.
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking. Sometimes people, they'll have to have it happen right in front of them to really believe. You know,
Yeah.
Any other questions, or do you believe that story?
Yeah, I do actually, because
I believe
similar things have happened online. Like you see that kind of story online all the time. Like this one story where this girl, a house next to her also burned down, and every day on the anniversary of that, she would see the house go to flames, but there wasn't a house standing there anymore. And that's exactly like the Gore Orphanage. If you guys don't know about that, what that is, just go online, look up the Gore Orphanage. Exactly what that happens. You could smell smoke. You could hear children pulling on you, and the remains of it. You could hear children like pulling on you, like pulling you somewhere. So,
Yeah.
yeah. Thank you for your time, Chris.
Oh, you're welcome.
I'm Hannah. This is Chris, and you've just watched an episode of Ghost International. See you later.